May God add a blessing to the reading and the hearing of these holy words. Friends, will you pray with me? Holy One, oil the hinges of our heart's doors, that they may swing easily open to welcome you. Amen. January 13th. We are 13 days into the new year on this second Sunday of Epiphany. So how are your New Year's resolutions going? Earlier this week, a Saugatuck member reported on Facebook that the parking lot at the YMCA was packed, full of people newly committed to exercise in 2019. But no worries, I trust that things will go back to normal in February, as the optimism of these first days give way to the tyranny of busy schedules and old habits. At least, that's what we're told to expect. According to US News, about 80% of resolutions fail by mid-February. And I assume that that's true every year, and yet, every year, despite that dismal track record, we step out into January with renewed optimism. There's something about that first page of the calendar and the gradual return of light in our northern hemisphere that seems to reinforce our resolve, to assure us that this time, this new start is really, really possible. This was as true for the gospel writers as it is for us. In the beginning. That's how the Gospel of Matthew starts, mimicking that very first verse of the very first book of the Bible, Genesis. Now, you wouldn't know this to read the Gospel of Matthew in English. Matthew chapter 1, verse 1 is translated into the much less poetic an account of the genealogy of Jesus Christ. But friends, the Greek word for genealogy, it's Genesis, which also means birth, story, beginning. So you could just as easily translate that verse to read the beginning of the life of Jesus Christ. You see, the writer of the Gospel of Matthew wanted to portray Jesus' arrival as an epic beginning, launch of a whole new age, divinely ordered. The coming of Christ meant the end of all human systems of domination, like the Roman Empire, and the coming of God's reign on earth. Prophets like Isaiah painted a vivid picture of the kingdom to come, what I often refer to as God's beloved community, and what our Jewish siblings describe as shalom, peace with justice, a time and a place when all God's people will flourish. John the Baptist believed that that new beginning was right around the corner. And so he went out to the edge of the wilderness, away from the power centers, away from the daily routines dictated by those in control, and proclaimed, we're about to turn the page on a brand new calendar. Now is your chance to wash away the sins of the past, to ditch those old habits and reboot your lives. And the people came. In droves, they left the city and met John out there in the wilderness until there was no parking left in the desert, and all the regular wilderness dwellers were a bit miffed by all these shiny-faced converts who were taking up space. And still, they kept coming. Determined to start over, ready to commit, to set the alarm and get up 30 minutes earlier, to exercise more and attend temple every week, to apologize to the neighbor about that whole who owns the camel fiasco, to eat more vegetables and less challah bread, and be more generous with the beggars at the gate. One by one, they waded into the water and let John dunk them all the way under. From life to death to new life. They came up soggy and sparkling in the sun. And for a few moments they stood like that, washed, dripping wet, looking back to the shore. Getting a fresh start like that, it's a bit like receiving a new journal with all the pages still blank and inviting. In a few delicious moments between the first opening of the page and setting pen to paper, all things are still possible. A romantic poem or scientific notes, long-held secrets finally put down, an essay on the habit of prairie dogs, or today's grocery list. Anything at all, until we start to write. There's a scene in the classic book Anne of Green Gables, as retold in the Netflix series Anne with an E. Has anybody ever watched Anne with an E? All right, 1, 2. In the scene, Anne, who is a hopeless romantic, prepares to write a letter to her friend and sometime love interest, Gilbert Blythe. She acquires a beautiful piece of clean white paper. She has only the one good sheet, so she composes the letter on scraps to get the wording just right. And when she is finally satisfied, she retrieves the page and lifts her brand new fountain pen over the pristine paper and begins to write. Dear Gilbert, but with the first stroke, ink spills from the pen and makes a huge black blot on the page, and she is mortified. Friends, if January is about fresh starts, February is about facing the smudges. It's about skid marks and chipped paint on door jambs, imperfect words, hurt feelings, failed attempts. Because as soon as we start to do anything, we leave marks. This is not all bad, and it is surely human. We try, we fail, we learn, we try again. Succeed or fail, we carry on. What else is there to do? Because the fact is, although we love beginnings, we live in the middle. Here on the muddy shores of the Jordan River, where our best laid plans periodically veer wildly off course, for better and for worse. Here, where we manage to be our best selves only some of the time. Here, where we get impatient or lose our temper, hit the snooze alarm when we ought to get up, or clam up when we ought to say, I'm sorry. Here, where our very best attempts to pursue justice for God's people sometimes do more harm than good. Here also, where our half-baked efforts may unexpectedly do more good than harm. That's what it's like to live in the middle. I sometimes wonder what happened to all those people baptized by John that day. Did they all follow Jesus? Or did they drift back into their old lives? And if they followed, what did that look like? What changed for them? How did being baptized affect how they lived in the middle? John made it really clear to those Sadducees and Pharisees that we are judged by our fruits, not by what we claim to be, but by what we do. And so I want to ask, what do we do differently as baptized people? But friends, this can get tricky, especially for those of us with a tendency to perfectionism. It can sound like we are being judged by the good we accomplish, the number of unsmudged pages we produce, how many New Year's resolutions we manage to fulfill. It can sound like we get one shot at washing away all the blunders and then we are on our own. But if those baptismal waters have power, it's not the power to perfect. Rather, it is the power to transform. Transform us into what? Into people who know with every fiber of our being that we are beloved. When Jesus went down in that Jordan River and the skies opened up, when that dove descended and the voice spoke, it did not say, "You are my child, get it right." The voice said, "You are my beloved." Of all the messages that might have been conveyed on that first day of that